AMD revealed their upcoming Zen 4 Ryzen 7000 family or series of CPUs, along with a new chipset and a new socket. And now, what does this mean for AM4 and the previous Ryzen nodes like the still budget focused R5 3600 or 5600X or the just released R5 5500 and the plethora of 300/400 series or the still fresh 500 series motherboards? AMD shared an awful bit of information about their upcoming AM5 socket and new lineup of Ryzen 7000 series CPUs, all but except one thing. Let's talk about it. What's happened, YouTube and internet? Terrence here, and we are back inside the lab and peeling back the layers of the recently premiered AMD 2022 Computex keynote, which revealed the Ryzen 7000 series and all new, all fast AM5 socket, which one of the biggest reasons for the platform jump. And I mentioned this throughout multiple live stream shows. If you're a first time viewer, we do go live once a week here. I welcome you to subscribe if you're new, hit the like button if you made it this far, but subscribe if you're new to catch all future live streams and regular videos as we publish them throughout the week. But as I was mentioning, one of the biggest reasons for this platform jump was to unlock additional power and
greater signal integrity for all of those high-speed IOs.
Which is largely in part due to AMD switching from a PGA design or a pin grid array design where the pins are on the back of the CPU to them switching with the AM5 socket to an LGA design similar to Intel or a line grid array, with the AM5 socket having 1,718 pins protruding from the socket that will make contact with the pads on the back of the processor. So about 18 more pins than what's available on Intel's LGA 1700 socket. So no more. It's going to take some getting used to, I'll admit, not having the pins on the back of the CPU, but it's a welcome and change by many, I imagine, and could be well worth the change given that AMD is saying that Zen 4 or the Ryzen 7000 series of CPUs will be.
We expect Zen 4 CPUs to deliver more than 15% higher single-threaded performance compared to the prior generation.
Psych! That's the wrong number!
So we should have the latest and fastest CPUs available for desktop consumers or for consumers, for PC gamers, to match up with the upcoming RTX 40,000 series and the upcoming RX 7000 series class of GPUs. And now, of course, it's a little too early to tell, but the biggest stat line I think that would have been the most significant would have been the pricing tier, or at least the model, the pricing model for the upcoming lineup of Ryzen 7000 series CPUs. AMD's not switching up the core structure like Intel did with 12th generation Alder Lake, so we can expect the 6, 8, 12, and 16 core lineup of Zen 4 CPUs initially, with the 6-core 7600X coming in at $449, the 8-core 7800X at $549, the 12-core 7900X going for a cool $699, and the 16-core, which will likely be the fastest gaming CPU of the lot, 7950X coming in at $899. Now, while these prices do seem much higher, significantly higher than what we're used to, they are just an educated guess and based on two key factors. Number one, unlike the CPUs available on the AM4 platform, if it wasn't an APU, none of the CPUs came with integrated graphics. So all of the CPUs, presumably according to AMD, will come with RDNA 2 graphics, which is a big deal because we still have APUs that are rocking the Vega graphics. So that's also going to add to the overall cost of the CPU. Number two, the AM5 socket comes with a heap of new technologies and new connectivities that will without a doubt demand a premium or an additional cost to be able to take full advantage of them and to also take advantage of the benefits that they have to offer. AMD also initially announced 3 different classes of AM5 motherboards we can expect, chipsets we can come to expect. The X670E, which the E you would think stands for enthusiast, but no, it stands for extreme. Go figure. And then the more attainable and likely more I guess more feasible, or what you could say likely to be the motherboard that most gamers will target, the X670 lineup of motherboards, and the more budget conscious or more budget focused B650 motherboard, a board that I see a lot of gamers jumping on board, if you will, I guess pun intended. But that also, I expect these motherboards to also come with a price hike or a price premium, much like the lineup of Ryzen 7000 series CPUs or Zen 4 CPUs, because these motherboards will come with new technologies like PCIe 5.0 on 24 lanes. But per AMD, there will be
range of new AM5 platforms covering the features, price points, and capabilities to address the needs of many different enthusiast desktop customers.
So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. And now, what does this mean for the future of the AM4 socket and the Ryzen CPUs in the 5000 series and at least 3000 series of CPUs? Well, for starters, I don't foresee or anticipate or expect to see any significant price drops on AM4 boards, both new and old, at least until early to mid 2023. We have to give gamers and those looking to upgrade to the new platform a chance to be able to attain these CPUs. We don't know what availability will look like. Those price guesstimates that I gave earlier in this video could very much change if we run into a similar scenario we've been dealing with for the last 3 years. So don't expect to be able to see, or don't expect to see quick price drops on, say, new B550 boards or X570 boards, which you can still right now pick up a decent B550 motherboard for about 150 to 160 USD. I will try to remember to leave a few links down in the description box below, along with additional links that you can jump right into that can help you with your journey to becoming a PC gamer. But yeah, I just don't foresee a significant price drop and, say, value with previous even chipsets that aren't in the 500 series or the 500 class, like the X400, used X400 boards coming down anytime soon. But that is an area that I do want to get back into here on this channel, and that's of course rediscovering that hidden value over on the AM4 platform. Because if Zen 4 and the AM5 socket really truly, you know, holds up to what AMD is building it up to be, then there can be a lot of gamers who are looking to invest in the best and get the most out of their system, and that could come with a platform jump. And keep in mind, we still have to see how Intel responds. And then again, with AMD switching to a LGA design, they claim that this allowed them to use CPUs that can pull at least up to 170 watts on the socket. So that's a lot of additional overhead that AMD has to work with. So these chips are going to be toasty chips, fam. And if you plan on overclocking, you will need to be prepared to compensate for a decent cooler. I mean, that's one thing AMD didn't really touch on or mention a lot. And we're going to talk about their benchmarks here in a second, but that's one thing they didn't really talk about or mention, and that is the TDP that we can come to expect with these CPUs. So if you plan on jumping onto the platform or the X670E chipset, then be prepared to also invest in a decent CPU cooler. We talked about this on a live stream. We talked about how overclocking has become more niche and more of a sport because the Silicon Lottery, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to get significant yields or significant gains on your overclock to compensate for the additional heat and temperature increases that you're going to see on your CPU. So if you're going to overclock, be prepared to invest in a decent AIO. I really don't foresee any overclocking on air with Zen 4, but you never know what Noctua responds to, which at least there's a good upside to this, and AMD did confirm that all of your AM4 socket coolers will be compatible with the AM5 socket, so go figure. And yeah, if temps weren't an issue on a CPU running
around 5.5 gigahertz with slight variations during gameplay,
then AMD would have told that. They would have made mention that how cool these CPUs are running at such high clock speeds on so many different cores. Instead, we had no mention of the cooling solution or temperatures during both the gaming preview, and we had no mentions of temperatures during the Blender render of the AMD logo. Most will benefit from the affordability and the practicality of the B650 chipset. The X670E and X670 chipsets are going to price out many gamers. Most don't overclock, and most shouldn't and really wouldn't be looking to spend extra in those areas for features that they're just not going to use. That money could go to, say, investing in a proper monitor, which I did a video on why your monitor should be the first component you buy. You can watch that right here. I remember to leave a link up to that card up there, but you can give that video a watch. We jumped into the reason why that is. And if you're not going to use features on the motherboard, like overclocking, like you have no interest in overclocking, then put that money elsewhere. Those boards are going to run at a higher cost. I will do a separate video talking about AM5 motherboards as we get a little closer to the launch. There's still everything is still left up in air and it's super ambiguous right now. There's no mention of AMD pricing their motherboards or with their partners pricing their motherboards. So that's something we're just going to also have to just wait out and see as we get closer to its fall release date. But most gamers don't overclock. You just want a board where you can install your CPU or have your CPU installed, and you really don't want to jump into the BIOS. Most gamers want to avoid the BIOS at all costs, unless it's to enable your XMP profile. But most gamers want to avoid the BIOS at all costs. Maybe don't want to run into any instability issues during your games. If you're a content creator and say you stream games over on Twitch or on YouTube, the last thing you want is your overclocked CPU to crash and ruin your stream. So the B650 chipset, I think, is going to be the most targeted or sought after AM5 motherboard. And that leads me to my biggest concern with the upcoming AM5 platform and Zen 4 lineup of CPUs, and that's its price to entry. AMD becomes the budget option once again, not with what lies ahead, but that to which has been left behind.
AM4 was an incredible platform with longevity and capability beyond what we even imagined it would be when it was first introduced.
By the time Zen 4 gets here, Zen 3 will only be 2 years old, making AM4 and its wide range of RYZEN CPUs an economical choice for budget-focused gamers.
Now, while AM4 is a great platform that will continue for many years to come,
the value is in the hands of those who will want the best for their money or for those who will want the most for their money. Will you or should you upgrade to the AM5 platform? It's way too early to tell. Only time will tell. So in the meantime, watch this build video here to see the 5800X in action. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here and join our community. With that said, I do hope to catch you all in the next one. So until then, be easy.